Hey guys, I just wanted to take a minute and pass on a quick testimony about the power of prayer. 3 or 4 times every year I get to go with a group of riders, motorcycle riders, to ride around to the remote areas of Cambodia. We go hunting the dark places, spiritually speaking, and pray that the Lord will send workers into those places to plant churches and bring the good news. So it's a tremendous privilege that I get to be a part of that. And just about a week ago, I was a part of a group that rode to the northeastern part of Cambodia. And while we were riding, I heard a testimony from the guy that founded this group about a place we were in, and I wanted to pass it on to you. So there was a village called Jab that about 20 years ago, Dave, the leader of the group, was asking the Lord if he could go into Jab and pray, and God said, no, not yet, not yet. And Dave saw this dot on the map and he kept praying, and it took almost 4 years before the Lord said, okay, now you can go ride to Jab and pray. And so Dave gathered a posse, as he calls it, a group of riders, and they rode north. And in those days there was not much pavement in Cambodia. This was again almost 20 years ago, and so they rode north to the nearest city that was kind of a jump off point, and then they had to do a trek through the jungle. And so they turned, and they didn't, no GPS, they just kind of knew a compass direction, and they're following this trail through the jungle for days. They're riding this trail through the jungle, and along the way, the trail kind of came to a point where there was a little side trail that went off, and Dave very clearly felt the Lord tell him that he should lead the group onto that smaller trail, leave the main trail to go onto this smaller trail. And so he did, and the group was kind of questioning the wisdom of that, because the bigger trail, looked like it was going the direction they wanted to go, and usually you stay with the bigger of the trails in the jungle, because that's the one that most people are taking, because it gets you to where you need to go. So they took the smaller trail, it wound around. They were in the jungle for 4 days and 4 nights, sleeping in hammocks and eating out of their packs. And on the 4th day, this little trail that they had taken that had wound around came out of the jungle and landed right at the market of the village they were trying to get to. And so the Lord had led them perfectly. But when they arrived, this town was a military outpost, and for the Cambodian army. And so a couple of soldiers came up and started yelling at them, "What are you doing here?" And "Why are you here?" All of these thoughts really kind of upset with them. And then they took the group of riders, Dave, another expat from America, and then 4 Khmer guys. It was 6 of them in total that were riding together in a group. Took them to the commander of the outpost, and the commander did the same thing. "What are you doing here?" And he said, "And what are you doing with the Khmer Rouge?" Now at that time, the Khmer Rouge was still controlling pockets of Cambodia, and they were active in that general area where this village was. And Dave said, "I'm doing nothing with the Khmer Rouge, nothing at all. I'm here because the Lord allowed me to come here to pray." And the commander said, "No, you're with the Khmer Rouge. I know you are. What are you doing?" And back and forth like this for a few minutes. And finally Dave said, "Sir, I'm not with the Khmer Rouge. Can you tell me why you're saying that I am?" And the commander said, "Well, for the last 6 months, every time I send men in that direction that you came from to go through the jungle, they die. The Khmer Rouge kill them. And so there's no way that you came through that, from that direction, unless you're with the Khmer Rouge. There's just no way." And Dave said, "No, sir, I'm not. The Lord led me through the jungle and told me where to turn." And the commander said, "Well, as long as you are here, you're a liability to me, because if you get hurt, I'm going to get in trouble. So if the Khmer Rouge gets you, I'm going to look bad. And so you're going to not leave my sight, you're going to sleep right here under my house. Hang your hammocks up below my raised house here tonight. And first thing in the morning, you guys are going to get on your motorcycles and you're going to take the one safe road out of town to the north. And you're going to leave and you're going to never come back. And Dave just said, yes, sir. And so the commander sent one of his soldiers to go buy them food in the market. He wouldn't even let them leave his sight to go get dinner. So the guys set up their hammocks under the commander's house, and they spent most of the night, Dave said, just praying for that village. It's like, Lord, would you send people to bring your light to this village, to this dark place? They spent most of the night praying, interceding on behalf of that village. And then first thing in the morning, they kept their word. They loaded up their motorcycles. They left in the direction that the commander told them to leave in, and that was that. Fast forward 10 years, and Dave heard that there was now a church in that village. And so he said, Lord, I want to go visit. And so the Lord said, yeah, go. So he went and visited. He met the pastor, began to compare stories, and found out, actually it was more than 10 years, sorry, it was 15 years, but found out that he told this pastor, hey, I came here and I prayed in such and such year, such month. The pastor was like, when? And they started to compare notes in more detail. Well, the pastor was blown away because the night that Dave and his riding group spent under the commander's house praying for that village, the next day apparently was when this pastor came to know the Lord. He was just minding his own business, had an encounter with the Lord that next day, got radically saved, and he spent the next 10 years just becoming a disciple of Jesus, not really knowing what God had in store for him. But after 10 years, God said, okay, now I want you to go to this village, Chab. I want you to go and plant a church. And so he obeyed, he went, and there's now a whole group of churches in that area that are overseen by this pastor who was saved the morning after Dave prayed all night in this village. And to me, that was such an incredible, concrete demonstration of the power of prayer. That when we pray, it's not just that we're somehow invisibly moving the ball further down the field, but that we can actually set in motion a chain of events that may not be immediately visible. It may take 10 years, 15 years to come to pass, but in the end, God used that night of prayer clearly to get this guy saved that he then was going to send 10 years later to start a church that would become a group of churches in that area. So I just wanted to encourage you, when you pray specifically and pray with faith that this prayer, this one time that I pray, can actually be the time that sets something in motion. It may take years to play out and come to fruition, but this prayer is powerful. This time of intersection has specific meaning and purpose to set something in motion, that it's not just kind of a general, I'll pray and maybe somehow this will generally get us closer to something happening, but that each prayer can be powerful and specific and targeted. And God can use our prayers as the catalyst to set something in motion. So really cool testimony. I was so encouraged. I love being a part of these rides when we go into the remote places. It's hard, a little bit dangerous, but it is such a privilege to be able to go as forerunners to the gospel and begin to pray into these places that do not yet have churches and say, Lord, would you raise up leaders? Would you send people? And to have stories like this to know that God does in fact do that very thing when we pray. So be encouraged in where you're at and in the challenges that you face and the opportunities you have to be a light and to share the good news that your prayers matter and that God is using the things that we do. He uses them in ways that just go far beyond what we could have anticipated. And his kingdom is being established here on the earth. So bless you guys. I love you and have a great day.